The night was quiet, but Daniel felt uneasy. He was walking along the old forest road, a place he usually avoided, yet tonight his bike had broken down, and he had no choice. The moon was bright, and the trees whispered as the wind passed through them. Something strange was in the air, something heavy, something that made his skin crawl. At first, he thought it was only his fear of the dark. But then he heard a sound, sharp and unnatural, like metal wings tearing through the sky. Daniel froze, his heart racing. Before he could move, a net of glowing light dropped from above and wrapped around him. The energy burned against his skin, sending shocks through his body. He tried to scream, but his voice was weak. His legs gave up, and he fell to the ground, trapped like an animal. Figures stepped out from the shadows, tall and terrifying. They were not human. They were huntresses from the stars, alien warriors with armor that glowed under the moonlight. Their eyes shone with fire, and their faces were sharp, beautiful, but filled with danger. Each step they took made the ground feel smaller under him. One of them moved closer, her silver hair catching the light. Her voice was deep yet musical. "You belong to us now, human," she said. Daniel's breath caught in his throat. He struggled, but the glowing net only tightened. His mind screamed for escape, but his body was weak. The huntresses lifted him as if he weighed nothing. He was dragged through the trees, deeper into the forest, until a ship appeared between the shadows. It was like nothing Daniel had ever seen. The surface was alive, black metal shifting like water, glowing veins of red pulsing across its body. The door opened with a hiss, and the air around it smelled of fire and strange flowers. Inside, the ship was darker. The walls moved as if breathing, alive with energy. They pushed Daniel into a chamber, a place that smelled of sweat and blood. Chains hung from the walls, some broken, and claw marks scratched into the metal told him others had been here before. But there were no others now, only silence. The silver-haired huntress, who seemed to be their leader, entered the chamber. Her armor was different from the rest, made from white bone and glowing stone. Her eyes locked on Daniel, and he felt as if she was reading his very soul. "You will fight," she said, her words cutting the air. "You will prove if you are worthy to live, or if your blood will feed the sand." Another huntress appeared beside her, younger, with green eyes that burned but not with hatred. Her gaze was different, softer, more curious. Daniel noticed the tension between them. The younger one spoke, her voice sharp. "Why him, Myra? He is weak, he will not survive." But the leader smiled coldly. "That is the test. Eris, if he dies, he was never meant to be chosen." Daniel's chest tightened. Chosen for what, he wondered. But no answer came. Instead, two warriors grabbed him by the arms and dragged him away. He fought, but it was useless. They carried him into a vast arena, its walls rising high and glowing with strange light. The ground was covered in sand that shimmered like glass. Above, hundreds of huntresses cheered, their weapons raised, their voices shaking the air. Daniel stood in the center, his heart beating like a drum. He was no soldier, no fighter, just an ordinary man who wanted to go home. Yet in this place, his life was nothing but a game for them. A blade was thrown at his feet, black crystal humming with strange energy. He picked it up, his hands trembling. The weight of it pulled at him, heavy and alive. The silver-haired leader's voice thundered across the arena. "Survive, human, and you may earn your place. Fail, and your body will feed the beasts." The gates opened, and the ground shook. From the shadows came a monster, its body covered in black scales, eyes burning red. Its claws tore the sand, and its mouth opened with a roar that made the walls tremble. The crowd screamed with hunger, waiting for Daniel's death. He held the blade tight, his breath short, his heart burning with fear. Every part of him wanted to run, but there was no escape. This was not a dream, not a nightmare. It was real, and Daniel understood the truth. If he wanted to live, he had to fight. The monster stepped into the arena, its body covered in black scales that glowed faintly with heat. Its red eyes locked on Daniel, and smoke drifted from its mouth. The alien crowd roared louder, their voices shaking the air like thunder. Daniel's chest tightened, his grip on the crystal blade slipping for a moment. He was just a man, and this was no ordinary beast. It looked like something born from fire and shadow. The silver-haired leader Myra raised her hand, and the crowd fell silent. Her cold voice carried across the arena. "Fight! Human! Show us your worth." Then she lowered her hand, and the beast charged. Daniel barely managed to step aside as the creature's claws struck the sand, sending glowing sparks into the air. The ground shook, and Daniel stumbled, almost dropping the blade. The crowd laughed, their voices sharp. He felt small, weaker than ever. But he knew one truth. If he gave up now, he would die. He forced his feet to move, circling the beast. The blade hummed, pulsing with strange power. He raised it, though his arms felt heavy. The beast turned fast, its tail whipping through the air. Daniel ducked, the wind of its strike brushing past his face. Sand stung his eyes, and his heart raced. Every breath burned in his chest, but still he stood. The crowd began to shout louder, half cheering, half mocking. From above, Eris, the young huntress with green eyes, leaned forward, her gaze fixed on him, watching every move. Unlike the others, she did not laugh. Her lips pressed tight, as if she was waiting for something. Daniel caught her eyes for a second, and in that moment he felt something, perhaps pity, or perhaps something more. The beast lunged again, jaws wide. Daniel rolled to the side, the blade in his hands cutting across its leg. Sparks and dark liquid sprayed from the wound. The creature roared in pain, its voice rattling the arena walls. The crowd screamed louder, this time not only with laughter, but with excitement. The Huntresses leaned forward, their eyes glowing. Daniel's cut was small, but it was the first strike, and it gave him something he had not felt since his capture: hope. The beast swung again, and Daniel raised the blade. The crystal sword clashed against the scales, sending shock through his arms. The weapon hummed louder, vibrating in his grip. It was not only metal, it was alive. Every strike seemed to grow stronger, as if the blade itself wanted to kill. Daniel shouted with effort, swinging again. The blade cut deeper this time, leaving a glowing mark on the beast's chest. The creature staggered, its red eyes burning hotter. But Daniel's arms shook with exhaustion. His breath came fast, his legs trembling. How long could he keep this up? The crowd roared again, half in anger, half in thrill. Myra, the leader, watched without moving, her silver eyes sharp. She leaned to one of the warriors beside her, whispering, "This one is different." The warrior frowned. "He is still weak." Myra smiled faintly. "Weakness is only the surface. Look deeper." Daniel pushed forward, striking again. The blade cut across the beast's neck, spraying dark blood onto the glowing sand. The creature howled, shaking its body. It swung wildly, smashing its tail against the ground. Daniel was thrown back, rolling across the sand. His ribs ached, his vision blurred. The blade slipped from his hand, landing just out of reach. The crowd cheered, expecting the end. The beast stomped toward him, each step shaking the arena. Daniel clawed at the sand, pulling himself closer to the blade. The creature opened its jaws, fire burning inside. The heat washed over him, blistering his skin. His hand finally touched the weapon. He gripped it, rolling to his knees as the beast struck. With a desperate cry, he thrust the blade upward. The crystal pierced through the beast's mouth, driving deep into its skull. The creature screamed one last time before collapsing into the sand. The ground shook as its body fell lifeless. The arena went silent. Then the roar of the Huntresses exploded like a storm. Some cheered, others hissed in anger. Daniel fell to his knees, his arms shaking, his chest burning with every breath. But he was alive. The blade pulsed in his hands, glowing brighter than before. The weapon had chosen him, and the Huntresses knew it. From above, Myra stood, her silver hair shining. She raised her hand, silencing the crowd again. "Enough," she said, her voice cold but proud. "The human has survived." Eris leaned closer, her green eyes wide, her voice sharp, but not mocking. "He did more than survive. He fought like one of us." Daniel lifted his head, his eyes locking on Eris. For the first time, he saw not only danger in her face, but something else, something that might save him or destroy him. The arena's fire burned around him, but he understood one thing clearly. This was only the beginning. Daniel lay in the arena sand, chest heaving, his body weak. The corpse of the beast still smoked beside him, its black scales broken by the glowing blade. The crowd of alien huntresses still roared, their voices echoing through the arena like thunder. Some shouted for his blood, others shouted for his freedom. But one thing was clear, he was no longer just prey. He was something more, and the huntresses knew it. Myra, the silver-haired leader, rose from her high seat, her armor gleaming under the lights. Her cold eyes scanned Daniel, sharp as blades. She lifted one hand, and the entire arena grew silent. "Human," she said, her voice like stone, "you were meant to die, but you survived. The blade has chosen you, and for that, you are no longer a prisoner." The crowd hissed and whispered, some in anger, some in awe. Eris, the young huntress with green eyes, leaned forward, her lips parting in surprise. No human had ever earned such words. Daniel struggled to stand, his legs shaking. The black crystal blade hummed in his grip, almost alive. He wanted to throw it away, but something inside told him it was dangerous to let it go. Myra's gaze hardened. "You will fight again, not against beasts, but against us," she declared. Her words made the crowd erupt once more. Some cheered for blood, others shouted for the honor of testing him. Daniel's heart sank. One battle had nearly killed him, and now they wanted more. Eris stood, her voice cutting through the noise. "Myra, this is madness. He is not one of us." The leader turned her head slowly, her eyes cold. "He is chosen, and the chosen are tested. Do you doubt the trial, Eris?" The younger huntress clenched her jaw, but she said nothing more. Her eyes, however, stayed locked on Daniel. Not with hatred, but with something else, something Daniel could not name. Later, they dragged him from the arena, his body bruised, his mind burning with questions. The halls of the alien ship twisted around him, walls pulsing with strange light. He was thrown into a chamber, but not the same cell as before. This one was different, clean, glowing, with strange patterns on the walls that moved when he stared too long. He realized he was no longer a prisoner in chains. He was something else now, perhaps a piece in their game. Eris entered the chamber when the guards left. Her armor shimmered faintly in the low light, her green eyes glowing. She stood in silence for a moment, studying him. Finally, she spoke, her voice softer than before. "You should not be alive," she said. Daniel let out a weak laugh. "Trust me, I've been told worse." Her lips pressed into a thin line. Not a smile, not anger, just thought. "The blade should not have chosen you," she whispered. Daniel frowned. "What is this blade? Why did it feel alive?" Eris hesitated, glancing toward the door as if someone might be listening. Then she leaned closer. "The blade is a weapon of the first huntresses. It bonds only with warriors it deems worthy. It has never chosen a human before." Her words sent a chill through Daniel's body. "Why me then?" he asked. Eris shook her head slowly. "I do not know, but Myra will use it. She will test you until you break, and when you break, she will take the blade from your corpse." Daniel gripped the weapon tighter, the thought of dying here filling his chest with fire. "I won't break," he said, though his voice trembled. Eris's gaze lingered on him, almost questioning if he truly believed his own words. The chamber door opened suddenly, and Myra herself stepped inside. Her silver hair shone, and her presence filled the room like a storm. Her eyes flicked to Eris, then to Daniel. "The human does not need your pity," she said coldly. Eris straightened, her jaw tight. I only speak truth, Myra. The leader's lips curved in a thin smile. Truth is for the weak, and weakness is not what we test. She turned to Daniel. You will face your first warrior at dawn, fail, and you will die, succeed, and perhaps you live another day. The words struck Daniel like a hammer. Another fight, this time not against a beast, but against a huntress herself. He swallowed hard, his grip tightening on the blade. Myra turned and left, her steps echoing. Eris lingered for a moment longer, her green eyes sharp. Then she whispered only one thing before leaving. Do not trust her. When the chamber closed, Daniel sat alone. The blade glowed softly in his lap, pulsing with heat. He stared at it, his thoughts heavy. He had survived once by chance, by desperation. But could he truly stand against these warriors? He closed his eyes, and a single truth echoed in his mind. He was no longer fighting only for survival. He was fighting for something greater, though he did not yet understand what it was. The Huntresses thought they were testing him, but perhaps, in some way, he was testing them too. And so the night passed slowly, the shadows on the walls moving like watchers, until the dawn came, bringing with it the promise of blood. The dawn came with fire in the alien sky. Daniel stood in the arena once more, the sand beneath his boots glowing faintly. The wounds from the beast fight still burned across his body, but he had no time to rest. The crowd of huntresses filled the stands, their voices rising like thunder. They did not come to watch a human survive. They came to see him die. Myra stood above them all, her silver hair shining like steel. Her eyes were cold as stone as she raised her hand. Today the human faces his first true trial, she declared. Against one of us. The arena erupted with roars, some cheering, some laughing. Daniel's stomach tightened, his grip on the black crystal blade trembling. He had fought a monster, yes, but this was different. This was against a warrior who thought, who learned, who killed for honor. The gate across the arena opened. From the shadows stepped a huntress draped in crimson armor, tall and sharp. Her name carried through the air as the crowd shouted it. Kayla. Her eyes glowed like burning coals, her long spear humming with deadly energy. She twirled it easily, the motion smooth and practiced. Daniel swallowed hard. He had never fought another human, let alone a creature like her. Eris was in the stands, watching silently, her green eyes fixed on him, her lips pressed in a thin line. He thought he saw concern, though it was gone as soon as he blinked. Myra, however, smiled faintly, as if she already knew the outcome. The crystal blade pulsed in Daniel's hands. He whispered under his breath, "Don't fail me now." Then the horn sounded, and Kayla moved. She was fast, faster than he thought possible. Her spear shot forward, the tip glowing red. Daniel barely managed to dodge, the strike slicing past his arm, leaving a burn where it brushed his skin. He stumbled, swinging the blade wildly. Kayla blocked it with a spin of her spear, sparks bursting into the air. The crowd roared with approval. Daniel's chest heaved, his mind screaming. He could not win like this. Rushing, desperate, afraid. Kayla circled him like a predator. "You are no warrior," she hissed, her voice sharp. "You are prey dressed in stolen steel." Daniel clenched his jaw, sweat dripping down his face. "Maybe," he said, his voice shaking, "but prey can still bite." He lunged forward, swinging hard. The blade hummed, cutting into Kayla's spear. The black crystal clashed with the glowing metal, and for a moment, the arena shook with energy. Kayla's eyes widened in surprise. She pushed back hard, knocking Daniel to the ground. He rolled away as her spear slammed into the sand, leaving a crater of fire. The crowd screamed, some calling for his blood, others impressed he was still alive. Daniel pulled himself up, his ribs aching. He thought of running, but there was nowhere to go. He thought of surrender, but the crowd would tear him apart. So he gripped the blade tighter. He had to fight. Kayla attacked again, her spear a blur of red light. Daniel blocked one strike, then another, the blade vibrating with each hit. Every clash sent pain through his arms, but also strength. The weapon was not only protecting him, it was guiding him. It pulled his hands toward the right angles, the right strikes. It was as if the blade itself was teaching him how to fight. With a roar, Daniel swung low, the crystal edge cutting across Kayla's leg. She stumbled, the crowd gasping. Her eyes burned brighter with rage. "You dare!" she shouted, her voice like fire. Her spear spun faster now, her strikes raining down like a storm. Daniel barely kept up, each block sending shock through his bones. But he refused to fall. Finally, Kayla thrust forward, aiming for his chest. At the last second, Daniel twisted, the spear grazing past him. He drove the crystal blade upward with both hands. The black edge pierced her shoulder, glowing bright. Kayla screamed, staggering back, blood spilling onto the sand. The crowd exploded, half in fury, half in wild cheers. Daniel stood shaking, the blade humming louder than ever. He had struck her. He had proved he could wound even one of them. Kayla dropped to one knee, her spear digging into the sand. Her breath came hard, her eyes blazing. But instead of anger, there was something else in her gaze now. Respect. She rose slowly, her voice strong. "This is not finished, human," she said. "But you're no longer prey." The crowd roared again, some shouting her name, others shouting his. Daniel's chest burned with exhaustion, but also with something new, strength. He had survived again, not against a beast, but against one of them. He raised the blade, the sound of the Huntresses echoing all around him. Above, Myra's silver eyes gleamed with interest. And beside her, Eris's face was unreadable, though her gaze never left him. Daniel understood the truth. Every battle made him less of a prisoner, less of a victim, but it also drew him deeper into their world. And soon, he would have to choose not just how to survive, but who to trust. The arena still burned with noise, the voices of the Huntresses echoing like thunder. Daniel stood in the center, chest heaving, blood dripping down his arm, the black crystal blade still glowing in his grip. He had done the impossible again, wounding Kayla and surviving where no human should. The crowd was divided. Half wanted his death, half called for more trials. But above them all, Myra watched with eyes like frozen fire. She raised her hand, and silence fell across the arena. Her silver hair caught the light as she spoke, her words sharp as blades. "The human has proven himself once more," she declared. "Pray no longer. He walks the path of the chosen." The crowd roared, weapons striking against the stone seats. Daniel felt the weight of every eye on him. It was not just fear now. It was expectation. Kayla was carried from the arena, her face pale, but her eyes burning with pride. She had not begged. She had not wept. She had lost with honor, and that meant Daniel's survival carried meaning. To the Huntresses, honor was everything, and now Daniel had it, even if only in pieces. He was led from the arena, his steps unsteady. The blade pulsed faintly in his hand, as if it shared his exhaustion. 2 guards escorted him through the living halls of the ship. The walls glowed with strange veins of light, twisting as if listening. Finally, they threw him back into the chamber of glowing patterns. This time, no chains, no galaxies, only silence. But he was not alone for long. Eris entered, her armor dim, her green eyes sharp as ever. She stood in the doorway for a moment, as if deciding whether to speak. Then she stepped inside. "You keep surviving," she said softly. Daniel smirked faintly, though his lips were cracked. Not sure if it's survival or luck. Eris tilted her head. "Luck does not cut through Kayla's armor," she replied. Her words held weight. Not praise exactly, but recognition. Daniel sank onto the edge of the strange bed in the chamber. He gripped the blade tighter. "You warned me before," he said, his voice rough. "You said not to trust Myra. Why?" Eris hesitated, her gaze flicking to the walls as if they might be listening. "Myra is not only testing you. She is using you," she whispered. "The blade chose you, and that threatens her. She will push you until you either break or become her weapon." Daniel frowned. And you? Why do you care? Her eyes softened for just a breath. Because I see something she does not. You're not like us, but you fight as if you were born for it. Daniel let out a bitter laugh. Born for it? I was fixing old bikes back on Earth last week. Eris's lips pressed into a thin line, but she said no more. The chamber door opened again, and Myra entered. Her presence was like a storm, filling the room with silence. Her gaze flicked between Daniel and Eris. Her voice sharp. Leave us, she ordered. Eris hesitated, but bowed her head and stepped out, her green eyes lingering on Daniel before she disappeared. Myra approached slowly, her silver armor gleaming. She studied Daniel as if he were a puzzle. You learn quickly, she said, her tone calm. Too quickly for a human. Daniel gripped the blade tighter, his body tense. I'm only doing what I have to. Myra's lips curved faintly. That is what makes you dangerous. You fight not for glory, not for honor, but for survival. That hunger is stronger than pride. She leaned closer, her silver eyes burning. The others do not see it yet, but I do. Daniel swallowed hard. What do you want from me? Myra's smile sharpened. To see if you can become more than human, she said, or if you will break and feed the sand like the rest. She turned to leave, but paused at the door, her voice low and cold. Tomorrow, you will fight again, not a beast, not a single warrior, but two. Let us see if the blade's choice was mistake or destiny. Then she left, the door closing behind her with a hiss. Daniel sat in silence, his heart pounding. Two huntresses. It was madness. But the blade pulsed in his hand, glowing faintly as if it welcomed the challenge. He stared at it, his thoughts heavy. He was no longer just trying to survive. Every trial was pulling him deeper into their world. Every victory was making him less human and more something else. And the worst part was, he did not know if he could stop it. Outside his chamber, the ship roared with voices as the Huntresses prepared for the next spectacle. But in the shadows, Eris stood alone, her green eyes troubled. She whispered to herself, words meant for no one. If he survives this too, nothing will ever be the same. The arena glowed with firelight, the sand shining like molten glass. Daniel stood in the center again, the black crystal blade heavy in his grip. His body ached from past battles, scars burning across his skin. Yet the roar of the crowd left no room for weakness. They wanted blood, his blood. Myra's voice carried above them all, sharp as steel. Today, the human faces not beast nor single warrior, but two of the chosen. Let us see if the blade truly belongs in his hands. The Huntresses erupted with cheers, weapons clashing against stone. Daniel's chest tightened. He had barely survived one duel. How could he fight two? The gates opened, and from the shadows stepped his challengers. One was tall and broad, her armor dark red, her weapon a massive axe that hummed with energy. Her name echoed from the crowd, Vera. Beside her was a smaller huntress, quick and sharp, her twin blades flashing with light. The crowd called her Sira. Two warriors stronger, faster, trained for years. And he was just a man with a blade that felt alive. Eris sat among the crowd, her green eyes locked on him. Her lips pressed tight, no words leaving her mouth. But Daniel felt her gaze like a silent warning. He raised the blade, forcing his legs to steady. This was not just survival anymore. This was war. The horn sounded. Both warriors charged. Vera's axe came down with the force of thunder. Daniel rolled aside as the sand exploded, fire scattering into the air. But Sira was already there, her twin blades flashing. Daniel raised his weapon, sparks bursting as crystal met steel. The impact rattled his bones. He staggered back, breath tearing from his lungs. The crowd roared louder. Vera swung again, her strength overwhelming. Daniel ducked, the blade humming in his grip. He slashed upward, the black edge slicing across her arm. Blood sprayed, glowing faintly in the air. Vera snarled, her teeth sharp as daggers. But before Daniel could breathe, Sira struck from the side. Her blade grazed his ribs, cutting deep. Pain burned through his body. He fell to one knee, gasping. The Huntresses above shouted with joy. This was the spectacle they wanted. Daniel tasted blood in his mouth, his vision blurring. But the crystal blade pulsed brighter. It thrummed in his hand, as if whispering, guiding. He gritted his teeth, forcing himself up. Not yet. Not here. He would not die like this. The two warriors circled him. Vera's eyes burned with fury, Sira's with cold precision. They struck together, one from above, one from the side. Daniel spun, the blade sweeping in an arc. It clashed against both weapons at once. The sound thundered through the arena. The ground cracked beneath them. For a heartbeat, all three froze. Then Daniel roared, pushing back with every drop of strength. The crystal blade flared with light, knocking both warriors back. The crowd gasped, voices rising in shock. A human had stood against two of them at once. Vera growled, charging again, her axe raised high. Daniel met her with a strike, their weapons clashing. She pushed with brute force, but he slid under her guard, driving the blade across her side. Her scream shook the air. She staggered, falling to one knee, blood pouring into the sand. Sira moved like lightning, her twin blades slashing faster than his eyes could follow. He blocked one, then another, but the third cut across his shoulder, fire ripping through his flesh. He stumbled back, his vision flashing white. His breath came in ragged bursts. He was breaking, but still he fought. Sira lunged, blades aimed for his chest. At the last second, Daniel twisted. The crystal blade drove forward, piercing her stomach. Her eyes widened, her blades clattering to the ground. The crowd went silent for a heartbeat. Then chaos erupted. Sira fell to the sand, her breath shallow, her blood glowing like embers. Vera roared, swinging wildly. Daniel barely managed to block, his arms trembling. The two weapons clashed again and again, until finally, with one desperate strike, Daniel drove the crystal blade into Vera's chest. The light flared, and her roar turned to silence. She collapsed beside her fallen sister in arms. The arena erupted with cries, some in awe, others in fury. Daniel dropped to his knees, his body shaking, blood running down his side. But he was alive. He had done the impossible again. Above, Myra rose, her silver eyes gleaming with cold fire. The human lives, she declared. Her voice cut through the chaos. The blade has spoken. The crowd shouted, weapons clashing, the sound of war filling the air. Eris did not cheer. Her green eyes narrowed, her thoughts dark. She whispered to herself, if he keeps surviving, Myra will never let him go. Daniel raised the blade weakly. He had no words left, no strength, but one thought burned inside him. Every victory pulled him further from who he once was, and closer to something the Huntresses feared, or perhaps desired. The choice was no longer only survival. It was destiny, and it terrified him more than death. The arena was stained with blood, glowing under the strange, alien sky. Daniel stood weak, his body broken, yet the black crystal blade still pulsed in his grip. He had survived the beast, survived Kayla, survived two warriors at once. But his survival was no longer a spectacle. It was a threat. The crowd's roar was different now. It was not laughter, not mockery. It was divided between awe and fear. Some wanted him honored, others demanded his death. Above them all, Myra stood in silence, her silver hair shining, her eyes sharp as blades, her lips curved into a faint smile. She raised her hand, silencing thousands at once. Enough trials, she said, her voice cold and steady. The human has proven himself more than prey, more than chance. Her words echoed like thunder. But now he will face the only test that matters. The crowd erupted again, voices clashing. Daniel's heart sank. He already knew what she meant. Eris rose from her seat, her green eyes flashing. This is madness. He has fought enough, she shouted. But Myra turned her gaze on her, icy and merciless. Are you afraid? Eris, Do you believe he cannot face me? Eris clenched her fists, but her voice trembled. He is not ready. Myra's smile deepened. Then he will break, and the blade will return to me. The arena gates opened, and for the first time, Myra herself stepped down. The crowd fell silent in reverence. Their queen, their leader, their most feared warrior was about to fight. Her silver armor glowed faintly, carved from bone and light. In her hand, she carried a long spear tipped with crystal, humming with power. Daniel's legs trembled as she approached. Every instinct screamed at him to run, but there was no escape. The blade in his hand throbbed harder, as if it knew this was its true battle. He whispered to himself, "Come on, one more time." The horn sounded. Myra moved like lightning, her spear striking with impossible speed. Daniel blocked, the crystal blade flaring bright. The impact sent shock through his arms, nearly knocking him down. He stumbled, his chest burning. Myra's eyes gleamed with cruel amusement. "You are fast for a human, but you are still only human." She pressed forward, every strike faster, sharper. Daniel barely kept up, his arms heavy, his body screaming. He dodged one blow, rolled aside, and slashed upward. The black crystal met her spear, sparks exploding into the air. For a heartbeat, he held her back, but Myra pushed, her strength overwhelming. He was thrown across the sand, crashing onto his back. The crowd cheered, weapons raised. Daniel gasped for breath, blood in his mouth. But the blade pulsed brighter, its glow wrapping around his arm. He staggered to his feet. "I'm not done," he said, his voice hoarse. Myra tilted her head, amused. "Good, die with fight in your eyes." She charged again, her spear spinning. Daniel met her strike, the two weapons clashing with thunder. The sound shook the arena walls. Every strike was faster, louder. The blade guided him, pulling his hands, whispering in his mind. He blocked one blow, then another, and for the first time he countered. His blade slashed across her shoulder, sparks and blood spilling. The crowd gasped. Eris stood frozen, her green eyes wide. Daniel had struck the queen. Myra's eyes narrowed, her smile fading. "You dare," she hissed. Her spear flared with light, burning brighter than the sun. She moved with fury now, her strikes relentless. Daniel blocked, dodged, stumbled. Every movement tore his body apart. But still he stood, still he fought. Finally, with one desperate cry, Daniel drove the black blade forward. It clashed against her spear. For a moment, the two weapons locked, energy tearing the arena apart. The ground cracked, the walls shook, the air burned. Then silence. Daniel stood shaking, the blade glowing in his hand. Myra staggered back, her silver armor cracked, blood running down her arm. Her eyes burned with rage and pride. She raised her hand, stopping the guards who rushed toward her. Her voice rang out. "The human has stood against me," she declared. "He has earned a right to live." The crowd erupted, torn between cheers and screams of fury. Daniel dropped to one knee, the blade humming softly. He had survived again, but survival was no longer enough. He had become something else, something they could not ignore. Eris stepped forward, her eyes meeting his. For the first time, there was no pity, no doubt. Only respect, and something more, something dangerous. Daniel looked back, his chest rising with broken breaths. He did not know what future awaited him, but he knew one truth. He was no longer just a prisoner. He was part of their world now, and the galaxy would never be the same.